Hey everyone, what's up? I'm KLF, and I have yet another Hearthstone class analysis video for you guys. I'm going to be talking a lot about the Priest today. That's the class of the day. The Priest is one of the, I would say, better classes, probably one of the best classes right now, I would argue, in Hearthstone. There's a lot of cool and nifty tools at the Priest's disposal. I'm going to be talking about all that in just a minute, but for those of you guys who don't know what's going on or not sure what this video is, all of my class analysis videos, I take a different class each time, and I talk about that class. I go over some of their mechanics, I go over their hero power, I go over their cards, and when that's all said and done, I usually give a sample deck list, and that's a deck that I've created from my own casual experience. Usually the deck lists that I show, I've played them for at least 5, 6, 7 games or so, and they're mildly to greatly successful. So I would say, like, if the deck isn't good, I look at the deck, I take out some parts, I tweak it, or I completely rebuild it till I get a deck that's pretty decent. So you can kind of take my deck list and use that as maybe a starting point for decks of your own. Maybe you can take some of the ideas or things like that I talk about and make a deck of your own of that particular class. So, the Priest. Before I go onwards and talk about some of the Priest cards, let's take a look at the Priest hero power. So, the Priest, as you can see, I do have my deck list here, but we're going to talk about that later. The Priest, his hero power is 2 mana for a lesser heal. Pardon me. Lesser heal, it restores 2 health. You can use that on yourself, or you can use that on any of your minions. I think you can even use that on your opponent or your opponent's minions if you want to use it for some sort of funky combos or things like that. So, the Priest. Now that we know the Priest hero power, he's all about the healing. And you'll notice that seems to be a common theme amongst many of the Priest cards. So you have cards like Circle of Healing that restores 4 health to all minions. Northshire Cleric, whenever a minion is healed, any minion, you draw a card, giving minions +2 max health and drawing a card. Then you have something like Holy Nova. That's kind of the Priest equivalent of board removal. So it's 5 mana, deal 2 damage to all enemies, and restores 2 health to all friendly characters. I like Holy Nova. I think that it definitely does have a place in many Priest decks. Dealing 2 damage to everything on itself is okay, but restoring 2 health to everything could also be pretty crucial, especially if you're playing a minion-heavy Priest deck, which I feel like a lot of Priest decks would. Another thing you'll notice quite early about the Priest is that quite a few options, like removal options, available. Holy Smite, so 1 mana for 2 damage, that's kind of the standard. But you have cards like Mind Blast, so 2 mana for 5 damage. I'm not a huge fan of the card. If you guys have seen my other videos, you know I'm not really a huge fan of cards that deal damage directly to enemy heroes. I feel like they're not versatile enough, and it kind of just takes up space in your hand. But things like Shadow Word Pain and Shadow Word Death, so destroying a minion with 3 or less attack, and destroying a minion with an attack of 5 or more, as you can see, the sweet spot is 4 attack. But anything less, Shadow Word Pain is going to help you out, and anything more, Shadow Word Death is going to help you out. Both these cards definitely see a lot of play. Very, very useful. I mean, they're not expensive at all, like their mana cost, I mean, at 2 and 3. And typically, even if you start the game with 1 in your hand, even if it's a Shadow Word Death, you're most likely going to run into a scenario in which you're going to use it. So I definitely like and recommend both of these cards. At least situationally, use one or the other. Another talked about card that the Priest has is Mind Control. I know this was recently nerfed. It used to be 8 mana for taking control of an enemy minion. Now it's 10. And I feel like Mind Control still has some utility, definitely. I mean, it's for 10 mana, you take your opponent, one of your opponent's fatties, throw it on your side of the board. Now, suddenly you traded 1 for 1 because you used 1 card to get rid of one of their creatures, but you've also gained that creature, especially if it's a big creature or a very influential creature. So Mind Control itself, I think, can win games, can really, really sway the tide in late games. How it was much better, I found, with the lower mana cost, costing 8 mana instead of 10, but I still think it does have some place in certain Priest decks. Going into crafting mode, just to look at some of the cards I don't have. So as you can see, all about healing. So something like Lightwell restores 3 health to a damage-friendly character every turn. Things like Temple Enforcer, so 6 mana for a 6/6, but it gives a friendly minion +3 permanent health, so that's pretty good. Also would heal them up or whatever. Cards like Lightspawn, as well, 4 mana for a 0/5. Its attack is always equal to its health. So that's neat because, I mean, the priest's all about healing. You can use your cards or your hero power to keep healing Lightspawn to buff it up, or if it, let's say, it takes some damage, goes down to a 2/2 or 3/3, you can get it right back up there and attack. So the mage has some control, and it's all about the heal, and it's got some cool stuff. So as you can kind of see, any card that really, well, outside of the removal, because things like Mind Control and Shadow Word and Holy Smite are pretty solid cards. Northshire Cleric as well. But as you can see, the key with Priest is you kind of want to get cards that have staying power that you can constantly heal over time, or creatures that perhaps rely on their health, like that other creature that I had just talked about, which I like, where its health is its attack is equal to its health. Cards like that really work well with the Priest, really synergize well with his hero power and kind of what he can do. So for the record, I do like Northshire Cleric a lot. I feel like it's almost a game changer at times. I mean, 1 mana for a 1/3. It definitely, the opponent definitely needs to deal with Northshire Cleric soon, because if they don't kill it with a kill spell or kill it in 1 turn, on your turn you can just heal it up or heal up another creature and you get yourself a card. So, I mean, if you have 1 or 2 Northshire Clerics in play, all you need is really to heal once or twice, and suddenly now you have great tempo and great card advantage over the opponent. So that's kind of what I would have to say about the Priest and the Priest mechanics. A card like Mind Vision, not a huge fan of, but putting a copy of a random card in your opponent's hand is seldom bad. It's just because it's random, you don't know what it could be, right? It's kind of neat because it gives you information about what the opponent has, and so I think in that sense it's also kind of cool, but it's not really always going to tailor itself to your situation, obviously. Something like Divine Spirit also works well. If you can get, I mean, I know there's single target removal, but if you're playing a class that doesn't necessarily have that kind of removal, you could try Divine Spiriting, let's say, you know, one of your cards with Taunt. Let's say it's like the Shield Master, the Shenji, I forget the name, but the neutral there, a 3/5. I mean, for 2 mana, you can make it a 3/10. Pretty solid, but it's obviously negated by single target removal. But being able to have 10 health helps kind of stall out the game, and it also helps you kind of maintain that board presence. The Priest has a lot of late game options. So, that said, we know his hero power, we know some of the cool cards available. Even Inner Fire, I do have actually 1 copy in the deck, changing a minion's attack to be equal to its health. Something like that obviously works well in combos with things like Divine Spirit, or other cards like, or Power Word Shield. Cards like that obviously synergize well with something like Inner Fire. But here's my Priest deck. So as you can see from the curve, a bit late game heavy. I mean, with 9 cards, 5 mana above, pretty late game heavy, but you kind of want to use the Priest's hero power as well as your cards to help sustain. So you're gonna have, you know, Shadow Word Pain, Shadow Word Death. There's just some lower creatures, a Swamp Ooze, a Grunt, a Taunter. I do have a couple Mind Visions in here as well. Once you get to this kind of mid-game section, I mean, I have an Emperor Cobra, Injured Blade Master. I opened one in a booster. Really, really good. If you get your hands on this card, I would recommend it in almost any Priest deck because it's 3 mana for a 4/7, but he hurts himself when he comes into play. So it's 3 mana for a 4/3. If it lives the turn, or if you play this on turn 5 or after, you're guaranteed to be able to heal it up right away. So it would actually be, you would use all your mana for the turn, but on turn 5, you're actually getting a 4/5, and then you could heal it again next turn if it lives. So it's like Injured Blade Master is really good for the cost. Its Battle Cry sets it back, but with the Priest, it kind of negates that, I find. The Enraged creatures might also work well. If you find a way to deal damage to them, or you can, let's say you not trade, but you trade damage with an opponent's creature, then you get its Enrage effect, and then you can heal it up. Suddenly it's like, uh-oh, like now this is starting to get scary. So something like Raging Worgen, not a bad addition at all. I have 2 Holy Novas, 2 Darkscale Healers. Darkscale Healer obviously synergizes well with Northshire Cleric. So if you manage to get into the late game, you can drop a Cleric and then drop a Healer. And let's say you have a couple other creatures on the board. Suddenly, now you get 2 cards and your opponent can't even respond, even if they kill the Cleric the following turn. So pretty solid. Yeah, that's pretty well it. Just some fatties in there. So I guess the key with this deck is, obviously, in the early game, not necessarily want to gain tempo, but more so in the early game, you want to kind of just play your creatures, stay alive, maybe draw a card or 2 with Northshire Cleric if you can, And once you get to the mid game, use your removal to stop the opponent until you can draw into a lot of your bigger threats. And things like Temple Enforcer or Guru Bashi Berserker have great staying power. They're going to help your larger creatures move on to win the game. So this is kind of my priest deck. It's fairly successful. I want to say maybe I've played it maybe 7 times and it's gone like either 4-3 or 5-2. I haven't played it a lot recently, but I do remember from when I had made it earlier. There's obviously a few changes you can make. Let me know in the comments, like my other videos. Let me know if there's any changes or any cards you don't like, or because again, I kind of make these decks and I try not to use a whole lot of rares. I think I only have a couple in here. I try to use as many of the basic cards as I can to kind of make a bare bones priest deck that will be somewhat successful. So let me know if there's cards you don't like, or maybe cards that I should substitute. Maybe I should have Holy Smites in there. Maybe it's more worth it to have Mind Blast or something like that. Just let me know. But that's what I have to say about the priest. I feel like he has some great weapons at his disposal, and looking at some of the priest cards that I do not possess, like some of the cards that I can craft, it's clear that he does have some bomb type cards. So thanks a lot for watching, guys. That is my priest class analysis for Hearthstone. Shoot me a sub if you like, or I mean just like the video if you like what you see. I plan on finishing up the rest of the classes very soon. Thanks a lot for watching.